world, there could be $90+ billion of assets that they're going to be able to divvy up among people. People will get their money back, but it was dollarized. So what does that mean? If I own 6 Bitcoins at $17,000, I'm getting 17,000 times 6 worth of value from the bankruptcy, but Bitcoin went to 67,000. So a lot of people upset about that as well.
So maybe the ETFs played a role. I think we can all agree on that, but Bitcoin's back. Why? What are all the reasons you think?
Well, I mean, I think the ETF was a big reason. I think the regulatory hurdle where the United States government is now allowing a CUSIP to be attached to Bitcoin is a big reason. And I think you know Wall Street as well as anybody. When Wall Street gets a product like this, it's like a selling machine, and it's generating lots of demand for the product. And I think we're surprised that there's over $10 billion in the first quarter of new flows for something like Bitcoin.
Why are you surprised?
Well, it took a year for GLD, the gold ETF, to get to $10 billion, and so this did it in 25% of the time. And, you know, not to bore everybody, but the network spits out about 900 coins a day. That's going to get cut in half probably April 20th or so. And so you're going down to 450 coins, and you probably have 2,000 to 3,000 coins of base demand at a time when the supply is going to get cut. So they said earlier that Bitcoin, the price of Bitcoin, the ETF was priced in. They're now saying that the halving is priced in. I don't believe that either. I think Bitcoin has a lot more to go here.
It's against inflation, interest rates. I've heard some people cite currency devaluations around the world playing a significant role as well. How would you assess that?
I see Bitcoin still as a technical asset that's still adopting. It's about a 6% global adoption in terms of world's population. That puts it around 1998 for Web 1, just to give you the arc of it. So I don't see it that way, that there's a big currency issue. I don't think it becomes a Bitcoin standard, but I do think it becomes a digital store of value akin to gold. And so what's at issue for everybody right now, where should that trade to if we're in price discovery mode? I'm just simply saying it could trade to half of the valuation of gold, which is a 6 to 8, 10 times move from here. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to come with great volatility. But I want investors that are in SkyBridge and know us to be a part of this story.
Do you think it's correlated still somewhat to, you know, either risk assets broadly, speculative assets, and if you do, does it ever divorce itself from that? In other words, if there's a sizable pullback in the NASDAQ.
Right, so it seems like it's sort of decoupling a little bit. Yesterday the market was weak, Bitcoin was strong. There's a little bit of a decoupling. You mentioned the inflation issue. Let's just point this out to the viewers. The U.S. dollar's lost about 22% of its value since January of 2020. Bitcoin's gone up 8 to 1. Now you can say, okay, well, Anthony, you're dot plotting. You're picking a high dot for Bitcoin. Maybe Bitcoin drops 50% due to its volatility. But I think the arc of it is an inflation hedge. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's a short-term inflation hedge, but if you own Bitcoin, anybody that's owned Bitcoin in a rolling 4-year period of time, they've actually done well, Scott. They've never lost money if they're able to hold on to it for periods like that.
Do you have in your mind a target level as people still try and throw those out, which you think is reasonable?
So I've been consistent with this, and I basically say that the halving's going to come on or about April 20th. Typically what's happened over the 18 months since the halving, you get a 4x move in Bitcoin. Let's be a little bit more conservative than that. I've been saying that it's about $170,000 for this cycle. But Bitcoin is a cyclical product, in my opinion. Waves of people come into it, the demand is there, and then it goes through, you know, pulls and drags, if you will. So I think it gets to 170,000 by the end of the cycle. We also like Solana, fully disclosed. We have smaller positions like Algorand and smaller positions like Avalanche. We're looking at some other tokens, but Bitcoin's a big owner.
Welcome to the Crypto Teacher. And you know I come back with that video just to make you think.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
And make sure you join the Patrons. If you're not a part of the Patrons, make sure you're hitting the Cash App. And we have Scaramucci speaking of Bitcoin, FTX, Sam Bankman-Fried. And with this bankruptcy, we're seeing some people get robbed and some people are gaining. And we know who's going to be the gainer. That's right, the big banks and big corporations. And the reason why Bitcoin and gold is moving on up is because of the fourth industrial revolution and the dying fiat. And it's not just in America, it's across the globe. And Bitcoin and crypto has always been correlated with the stock market and will always be. It's just the fact is, guys, we have certain events in stocks, and then we have certain events in cryptos. That's the reason why I tell you, look at your calendar, and also in crypto, I'll let you know all the events that are happening, like futures and futures contracts ending. And the mainstream media is not going to go over these events because then you're going to notice a pattern. And remember, the crypto teacher told you. And we have Biden in Baltimore doing a speech about the bridge. Guys, we couldn't find Biden in Palestine, Ohio. It took him a whole year to visit. And that's why I stated this bridge situation has red flags all over it. And we have these tech layoffs just keep coming. Yes, we have layoffs in other sectors, but in tech, guys, we know these are good paying jobs. These are six-figure jobs. And we know when you lose a six-figure job, you're just not going to pop up and get you another one. The current employment market is not set up for that. And speaking of employment, this video states that black unemployment is going up. Guys, it's always been going up if you look at statistics. If you go to the Fed's website, it gives you all the statistics. Never forget the economy is the secret weapon. If you give a man or a woman an honest wage, you wouldn't have a lot of situations that's going on in society now. I don't care what the race is. If the sheep only woke up and see it's all about the have and have-nots, they would try to close the gap. And remember, the crypto teacher told you, because he knows when it comes to the NWO, it's all planned out. You have a wonderful day.
Our prayers for you is that time comes sooner rather than later, but it will come. Also, never forget the contributions these men made to this city. We're going to keep working hard to recover each of them. And you know, my vow is that we will not rest, as Carlos said, until the cement has dried and the entirety of a new bridge. A new bridge. Earlier this afternoon, we took an aerial tour and survey of the wreckage. You know, from the air, I saw the bridge that's been ripped apart. But here on the ground, I see a community that's been pulled together. I want to thank you all, the first responders, the port workers, state and local officials, who sprang into action before dawn, who've been here ever since. And we did talk, I think it was 2 or 3 in the morning. You were out here. You were here. Within minutes of the collapse, the U.S. Coast Guard arrived on the scene. Within hours, I ordered personnel from the Army Corps of Engineers, the Navy, the Department of Transportation to assist in every way possible. Within a day, we stood up a unified command. In the weeks to come, I want you to know we're going to continue to have your backs every step of the way. I guarantee you. I guarantee you. First is our priority to reopen the port. This is one of the nation's largest shipping hubs. And it's the top port in America, both in importing and exporting of cars and light trucks. The number one. Simply put, the impact here has a significant impact everywhere, up and down the coast and around the country. Thousands of tons of mangled steel remain lodged in the water, blocking ships from moving in and out of the harbor. I've directed the Coast Guard, the Navy, and the Army Corps of Engineers, who are, by the way, the finest engineers in the world, and the state officials to work together to help remove this steel as quickly as possible and as safely as possible. So far, our team has been able to clear 2 small channels for essential ships, helping clear the wreckage. And yesterday, the Army Corps announced that by the end of April, they'll be able to open the 3rd channel for some commercial traffic, including car carriers. And by the end of May, we'll open the full channel, the full channel.
Wall Street is buzzing about Apple layoffs, cutting more than 600 employees, according to a new state filing in California. The layoffs are the first for Apple since the pandemic and come shortly after the company shuttered its self-driving car project. Unlike many of its big tech peers, Apple was more conservative.
NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang showcased a fleet of these during
Their recent conference out here, he announced NVIDIA's own robotics-related project called Groot. Diving deeper into the data, though, the jobless rate for Asians and Hispanics both fell sharply to 2.5% and 4.5% respectively. But for blacks, the unemployment rate actually surged to 6.4%, and that is the highest level since August of 2022. Joining me now to discuss this disparity in jobs and the impact on the economy is Mark Morial, President and CEO of National Urban League and the former mayor of New Orleans. Thanks so much for being with us. First, talk about why we why do we have this disparity, and what can we do about it?
It's not easily explainable, but it must have something to do with discrimination in hiring practices. I mean, how else could you explain this sort of aberration where the joblessness rate for every other ethnic group has gone down with the exception of African Americans? So I was surprised to see it because this is otherwise a hot jobs report.
We're going to a different economy, and we're going to be learning more about that as we go. But clearly, we're learning that things can be done from remote locations. We're learning that technology can replace people even more than we thought.
We're not going back to the same economy. We're recovering, but to a different economy, and it'll be one that is more leveraged to technology. And I worry that that is going to make it even more difficult than it was for many workers.
In Silicon Valley, and my friends who work in technology know that what we did to the manufacturing workers, we are now going to do to the retail workers, the call center workers, the fast food workers, the truck drivers, and then even bookkeepers, accountants, insurance agents, lawyers, and on through the economy. So what happened to the manufacturing workers is a very clear sign.
And so we'll import Chinese-based CBDC technology. So it's going to be CBDC in a box provided to you by the People's Bank of China.
But every stock, every bond, every currency, every commodity, every piece of art, every private business, every piece of real estate will eventually be a token on a blockchain, an entry on a ledger, permanent and immutable. We will have truth instead of trust, and we will save over $7 trillion a year. 6 to 8% of global GDP is wasted by the friction of the trust industry that's necessary when you have dual entry accounting. With triple entry accounting, which is what a blockchain is, we get rid of all of that friction. It's a beautiful future.
Like what you see in China and their social credit scoring systems, right? If we get identity wrong, it could be a tool to enslave humanity. And if we get it right, it could be a tool to liberate humanity. And as an American, I'm obviously rooting for the one that's on the side of freedom.
Bitcoin is an international asset. And also, I do believe the role of crypto is, it's digitizing gold.
I actually believe this technology is going to be very important. Look at it. We have been part of the huge revolution in investing through ETFs. We believe that ETFs will be changing the whole way we invest. Many people still use it as a means, people are investing it for indexing. No, the majority of people who are putting money in in ETFs are active investors that are buying exposure. The entire bond market is being transformed as we talk right now. I believe the next generation for markets, the next generation for securities will be tokenization of securities. And if we can have that distributed ledger that we know every beneficial owner, every beneficial seller, we all have our code of who's buying, who's selling, instantaneous settlement. And think about it, it changes the whole ecosystem.
Chinese bank ICBC has been hit by a ransomware attack, and the U.S. Treasury market, as a result of that, has been disrupted. This, according to the Financial Times. We're getting it more right now with Bloomberg's Shonali Bassick. Shonali, what do we know?
Listen, we have the Financial Times now reporting that ICBC, one of China's largest banks here, was hit with a ransomware attack. And remember, they're a very significant intermediary in the Treasury market. The SIFMA has told told his members that this has been part of the reason here that the system is kind of clogged up, if you will. During that auction that we saw a little bit before, the attack had prevented ICBC, according to the Financial Times, from settling Treasury trades on behalf of other market participants. A large executive at a major bank also telling the paper that such a large party on the fixed income clearing corp creates major concerns, potentially impacting the liquidity of Treasury markets. Now,
it was not just a poor auction; it was absolutely lousy. And you know, when the dealers have to step in to save a Treasury auction, that's a rare occurrence. And very much a traditionalist. I like staying with the dollar. You know that from when I was there. It's make the dollar the choice. I hate when countries go off the dollar. I would not allow countries to go off the dollar, because when we lose that standard, that will be like losing a revolutionary war. That will be a hit to our country, just like losing a war. And we can't let that happen. And too many countries now are fighting to get off the dollar. And
Cryptoteacher and the New World Order book, plus the 3 kids books. It's time to re-educate. Also, new to cryptos, Coinbase, Bitrue, Binance. Do not forget book links and crypto links are in the description. The stock channel, guys. Don't forget to go like, subscribe, spread everywhere. You have your Kobo, your chip stocks, your banking, your gaming. While everybody's sitting at home, get home stocks, the Seaver, the biotech stocks. And while everybody's at home wishing they were still getting that free money, what are they doing? Drinking and smoking weed. Don't forget about those stocks, and you have a wonderful day. The most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation to come. Steve Jobs. And guys, you know I truly believe in this. When you look at the New World Order, they're the storytellers. And that's the reason why I wrote my New World Order book. But guys, now it's time to change the current generation. And I wrote 3 kids books. You know I love the Trinity because I understand the power that's in it. So I have 3 books. We have an opportunity to change the generation, to educate, not just me, but I want to show you that I take action on a daily basis. And I want you to take action on a daily basis. Whether it's your job, whether it's in your community, we have an opportunity right now to educate the masses. I posted this on my Twitter account. Please share, but this is a short clip of the 3 books. There's going to be a clothing line and action figures. Please get these books for your kids, nephews, cousins, friends, so therefore we can start the re-education now. Because as we see, the 4th Industrial Revolution foundation is definitely here. Robots, algorithms, drones, taking humanity out the picture. We have to re-educate. But let's get into the video.
Part 1. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save the village. Part 2. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save New York from COVID-33. Part 3. King Joshua and Grandma Tam goes to China.
It's mandatory to get part 1, part 2, and part 3 of this series. It's time to re-educate Generation Z.